is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening and welcome to Repo Action's monthly Act and Learn webinar. Tonight's topic is self-esteem, self-expression, and self-love for activists, and we're so glad you're here. So first, we'll just kick off with your host for brief introductions. This first voice you're hearing is me, Erin Matson. I am based in Arlington, Virginia, and I am one of the co-founders and co-directors of Repo Action.
And I am Pamela Merritt. I'm based in St. Louis, Missouri, and I am the other co-founder and co-director of Repo Action. So let's go through our agenda for tonight's webinar. At first, we're going to tell you a little bit about us for people who aren't familiar with Repo Action. And then we're going to go over self-esteem and activism. We're going to have Oriaku, Njoku from ARC Southeast discuss radical self-love, and I cannot wait for that. And then I'm also eagerly anticipating self-expression writing exercises with Shannon Ivey from Provide and the Theater of the Oppressed. After that, we'll go through next steps, and then we will have a Q&A with the panelists. As you think of questions that you would like to ask, just drop them into the question feature on your GoToWebinar control panel. And then we promise to close at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Repo Action is a new direct action group forming to increase access to abortion and advance reproductive justice. We are proud of our left flank analysis, of our willingness to hold folks on all sides accountable, whether they're allies or the opposition, and we are committed to nonviolent direct action.
Great. Thanks, Pamela. All right, so I'm just going to tee up quickly on the concept of self-esteem, and then we're going to move over to Oriaku and Shannon because we're so excited to hear from them tonight. But just so we have some common definitions, so self-esteem is defined as, quote, a confidence and satisfaction in oneself, unquote. And self-esteem is important for everyone. And before we got started tonight, I asked my 3-year-old daughter what she thought self-esteem meant. She had no idea. But when I explained the concept to her, after she said, so it's if you don't have good self-esteem, it's like you feel sick. And I said, yeah, that sort of encapsulates it. So self-esteem and activism, specifically, why are we talking about self-esteem for activists now? Well, first and foremost, believing in ourselves can be a relevant issue anytime. That said, in this work particularly that we do as reproductive justice advocates, we know that abortion opponents, and for that matter, opponents of racial justice and any form of progress, as well as online trolls, can be absolutely brutal and cruel to activists. And now we have, in particular, since Trump has come into office, we have a White House that leads dramatically open attacks on people, and especially people with marginalized identities. So we felt that this discussion was really important now. Specifically also, and another conversation that happens at times is just thinking about our broader movements. And within the broader reproductive health rights and justice movements, a broader movement-wide sort of self-esteem issues may also be linked to some of the problems that we talk about sometimes. So a defensive crouch instead of a proactive, proud one about our work. Fears of talking about abortion out loud, and accepting disappointments from political allies without pushing back. And so the bottom line is that while loving yourself is important for activism, we're not doing that just for activist purposes tonight, that everyone should love themselves and take care of themselves first and foremost because it is important for you. It's not just a means to activism. And also just a reminder to not put activism before what you need to live. You should empower yourself to step away when you need to, and investing in yourself for the long haul empowers you to be in it to win it for a marathon and not a sprint. And if there's something that this Trump administration has shown, it's that this is going to be a long slog. It's unbelievable that it's only been 2 months since the country changed so dramatically. And so with that, I'm going to pass it back to Pamela.
Great. And looking at Oriaku's audio, so I think we need to adjust that just a little bit, but I'll do a quick introduction. So Oriaku Njoku is the co-founder and executive director of Access Reproductive Healthcare Southeast, and is based in Atlanta, Georgia. And we are so very happy to have you join us tonight. Oriaku, are you there?
I am. Good evening.
Good evening. So I'm going to kick us off with some questions about self-love and radical self-love. So what is radical self-love? What does it mean? And why does it matter?
Right. So radical self-love, I think when I think about self-love, really it could be anything and how you define it. But when I think about self-love, it's definitely like a heightened level of compassion and heightened level of like accepting, yourself for who you are, and just like unapologetically being your authentic self, and being okay with that. That's what I think of when I think of radical self-love. And so the reason that may seem radical is, a lot of times we're not expected to be ourselves or not expected to bring our full selves to the table. And that's for me one of the beautiful things about being in the reproductive justice movement is that because it's so grounded in intersectionality and so grounded in like the uniqueness of everyone that you're able to show like that heightened level of love and acceptance and compassion and care for not only yourself, but then that trickles into how you interact with others as well.
Thank you. So I've actually had the pleasure of being in a training with Oriaku. And when you were talking about radical self-love, it really touched me. And I think it really sent me on an exploration of whether I practice radical self-love in my own life and kind of figuring out like how to prioritize myself in all of this work. So do you practice radical self-love, and have you always, or did you have a set point when you decided that was the approach you wanted to take on your life?
Yeah, so it is something that has developed over time. It's definitely not something that I've, always practiced or always, kept at the forefront of my mind. So I'll kind of like explain my little entry into this movement, but yeah, growing up and getting involved in different bits of activism, like I never fully felt like I could actually bring my full self to the table. So being like a first generation queer Nigerian American, fat femme from the South, it's very rare that you can bring your full self to the table in some movement spaces. And so once I found reproductive justice, or once she found me, I started going on this journey as far as like, what does it mean to achieve reproductive justice? And what does it mean to embark on that journey to have reproductive justice for all? And so I came to the point where I've realized that, we all have organizational missions and visions. And recently I've been thinking about like, what is my actual purpose in life? What is my purpose in this movement? And when I think about it, I think it's being able to come together with a group of people who are committed to creating change through unconditional, radical, revolutionary love. And so through that action of being able to be truly committed to that unconditional love for the people who we live with and work with and love daily, I firmly believe that, as you're showing that level of love for people who you do direct service for, people who you're trying to create change for, you're also doing that for yourself. And coming to the realization, especially working in the abortion field, I've worked in abortion clinics, and every day I would walk in, you know, to the clinics, and I'm like, the narrative that is out there, what they're saying, that is definitely not coming from a place of love. And what they're saying is grounded actually in hate. Like, there's a lot of hate. There's no way that you can claim to unconditionally love someone and say the things that some of those antis are saying as folks are walking into the clinic. And so for me, I was like, no, we could definitely, you know, reclaim this narrative of what it means to love and what it means to do movement work, and do it with love, just like unconditional love. And it's not always been that way, but it's definitely an ongoing work in progress. So
that is so exciting. So I'm hoping you can go into just a little bit of detail about how self-love intersects with activism, and specifically the struggle for reproductive justice. So in your work, if you can, like, how do you apply this? How do you make this happen? I think a lot of people are like, well, that's the goal, but how do we work and put into practice making this a reality?
Yeah, well, that's one of the fun things of being a co-founder of an organization. That you can definitely, you know, flip the script and take control over how you want your organization to be run. You know, I don't think that I'd be able to actively practice self-love without making sure that we're actively practicing self-love in our daily actions. And even in the way that we treat my colleagues who I work with, making sure that we definitely have the time to practice that self-love. You know, you could get so wrapped up into the daily grind of going out and doing intake and, you know, being on the health line and going back to talking to folks who, at least for us, folks who end up calling our health line every single day who need support with abortion funding, that it can be demanding, incredibly demanding. And so making sure that, as you know, as a supervisor with my colleagues, that I'm making sure that we take that time to take care of ourselves too. So that's little things like being able to build in breaks every quarter to take care of you. I mean, it's actually called like our self-care days. So we call them like resets. So quarterly we have resets to be able to do what you need to do to take care of yourself. Being able to create different policies, like, you know, making sure you have your birthday and your half birthday off, because I mean, I get a little funny with that, but making sure that you have the time to take care and enjoy life and take care of yourself and love yourself. And then I also have this, you know, this thing of like accountability. As a supervisor, I could get super wrapped up in doing the work as well. So I've also told the folks I work with to be like, if you see me in the office before you get here and I'm still here whenever you leave, like, you know, and it happens consistently, let me know, you know, let me know, tell me to go home. Just really creating that environment where we all feel free to openly talk and engage with each other. But that is definitely a huge part in being able to do that. And being able to be like, you know what, I'm definitely not perfect. Definitely not perfect. So being able to show myself the same level of compassion that we show our callers is something that is really, really important to me too. So yeah, those are just like little things that we do organizationally to make sure that we actually have time to practice radical self-love. Which seems really woo and really different to a lot of folks, especially whenever you're used to the like nonprofit grind, which, you know, it is what it is. But I definitely didn't, you know, originally work in nonprofits, so maybe that's why I'm like, no, this is not. No, you don't have to do this for 8,000 hours a day. Like, you should take time for yourself, you know, and really practice that.
Yeah. Great advice. So I realized I think I put the horse or the cart ahead of the horse. I always get that one wrong. But if you could just tell me just a little bit and tell our attendees a little bit more about the work that you do at ARC Southeast.
Yeah. So ARC Southeast is a reproductive justice organization that supports Southerners in navigating the various pathways towards accessing safe, affordable, and compassionate reproductive health care. And that's through abortion funding, providing practical support. So that practical support looks like various aspects of logistical support. So rides, lodging, clinic escorting. And then we're also focused on building power in communities in the South around encouraging people to speak up and speak out against reproductive oppression. And that's through education, advocacy, and leadership development. So we're a regional abortion fund. We're part of the national network of abortion funds as well. And what we do our work in 6 states, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Tennessee. And so one of the main things that we do is folks are able to call into our health line Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday mornings, they're able to call in whenever they need some additional support with funding for their abortion, or they need help with that ride. And so we are able to help them get rides, get the lodging, match them up with a volunteer who might be able to give them a ride. But a lot of what we do is the abortion funding piece. So yeah, that's basically what we do. So actively trying to recruit folks to join us as we, eliminate barriers to abortion access in the Southeast.
That is exciting work, and thank you for that. I apologize for not allowing you to lead with the important work that you're doing. So I just have one more question. That, when I think about self-love and I think about the journey that I've had as a Black woman, and how societal pressures and, just the garbage that gets thrown at Black women all the time. When you think about how self-love intersects with identity and history, and I'm just curious for your thoughts on how self-love intersects with identity and history, and how loving yourself is a radical act. And I really do feel like it is, but I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so that is one of those things too, where at one point before I even knew about Audre Lorde, and that quote that she has where it's like, self-care is actually, I'm going to completely butcher this quote, but self-care is, an act of, it's like an act of political warfare, and it's self-preservation in order to be able to provide self-care for yourself. And so when I first came across that quote, it was at this time when I was transitioning from working in a spa to working in an abortion clinic. And so I could talk about self-care all day, every day, and be like, yeah, no, you should totally do it. It's an act of self-preservation. But especially like as Black women and as, people of color or queer people of color, you're not, society wants you to think that you're not supposed to take care of yourself. That you're not supposed to love yourself. What we see in the media most times is that, we're not supposed to do those things. We're not supposed to take care of ourselves. Where if we do, then it's like we're being selfish, or we're not, doing what we need to do. And so, yeah, I mean, just me being like, no, I'm actually going to take care of myself because I have to. It's this act of like being able to sustain not only myself for myself, but then, for this movement and for this work and for justice, like I have to be able to set this example. So, and then I also think about, my parents are from Nigeria. They're Igbo, which is the ethnic group where that I belong to. And so when I think of like Igbo women, I definitely think they're like the fiercest women that are out there. And it's always about like making sure that you take care of yourself, in some way, shape, or form. Making sure that you take care of yourself, making sure that you take care of your people. It's just like, Igbo people come from this place of like wanting to serve. And so in order to do that, in order to give your best self, you have to take care of yourself, you know? So when I think of that, I was like, somewhere along the line, you know, some of that may have been forgotten, but I think there are a lot of moves that are being made to really reinforce the importance of, you know, taking care of yourself and loving yourself. That's the only way. That's the reason why we do what we do, you know? So yeah.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for your thoughts and just for prioritizing and lifting up the notion of self-love and radical self-love in your work and in your life. And I just, yeah, it's amazing the work that you do. So we're going to have you hold on for a little bit while we go to the second panelist. And then if you'll stick around, I know we'll have some questions for you. Thank you so much, Oriaku.
Thank you.
Aaron?
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Oriaku, and thank you, Pamela, for that incredible session. So I'm just attempting to unmute Shannon and having a smidge bit of difficulty. So Shannon, if you're able to unmute yourself, greatly appreciated while I start introducing you. So Shannon Ivey has a Master's of Fine Arts. She is the South Carolina State Coordinator 1 for Provide. She's also a joker that's also considered a facilitator for Theater of the Oppressed, which is a really cool workshop that you can do at some conferences. Pamela, can you help me unmute Shannon? Are you able to do that? I'm having trouble with my computer for some reason. Great. Thank you. Okay, Shannon, are you there?
I am.
Oh, excellent. Well, we're so glad to have you tonight. So I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Hey, so first of all, I just want to take a really deep breath with the amazing people that are on this panel, you guys, and the amazing folks that are listening. So if we could all just take a deep breath through your nose and a deep exhale through your mouth. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here with you. And what I want to do with you is something that I have begun to do on my Facebook page, just for fun, these writing prompts. So here's what we're gonna do. I'd like you to get a sheet of paper, if you would like, and your favorite pen. Don't worry, we're not gonna start right this second. I want you to get comfortable in your seat. And it's hard to do that because we'll yeah, I'm comfortable, but really we're not. So I want you to get kind of messy comfortable, you know? Real comfortable. So if you're I don't want to write, Shannon, fine. You can lie down if you want to. Shut your eyes if you want to. I want you to practice saying yes to what you need right now. So next step, I'm going to read you a poem that gives me a lot of deep joy. And it's by Mary Oliver. You can read it in front of you or just listen to me. Or completely ignore me and think about something else. So while you're listening, you have some choices. If there are phrases that you like, write them down. You can also just enjoy me reading this poem to you, like a bedtime story. Okay, and then after the poem, I'm going to ask you some questions, and you can choose to journal about them. You'll have a few minutes, or just reflect. So hopefully you have that piece of paper, and here we go. This is The Journey by Mary Oliver. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles, mend my life, each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind. The stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. So take a deep breath in with me. And so my question is one of that Audre Lorde's radical self-love. My question to you is, what is it that you can do for you right now, tonight? What is it that is saying, what is that voice saying to you that you need to do? It can be something really practical, or it can be something much larger. So I'm going to give you, let's journal for about 3 minutes. We're all in this together, so keep on with that thought, whatever it is. And if you've stopped, just take this time to relax. Okay, a few more seconds to finish that thought. All right, so next step is, if you would, put your hand on your heart and then put your other hand on your belly. Take a deep breath in and exhale. And ask yourself, how do I feel right now? Without judging any of the things coming up, do a little check-in. So Mary Oliver has another poem I'm going to read to you. It's a shorter one. And really, this is just my love note to all of you guys. This is my love note, a little virtual hug. Wild geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across landscapes over prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. And so with this last little moment we have to do a self-exploration, I just want you to ask yourself, what is it that the soft animal of your body loves? What is it that the soft animal of your body loves? And can you give yourself a little bit more of that? Perhaps write it down and make a date with yourself for tonight or tomorrow to get some of that deliciousness. And with that, I just want to thank you for spending this time with me.
Shannon, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. That was very special. Thank you for doing that for us.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So anyone, if you have questions for either Shannon or Oriaku, feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll get to as many as we can. Before that, I just want to give a plug that we'd love to have you. Be sure to sign up for our email list if you're not already on it. You can do that at www.reproaction.org. You can follow us on social media. We are Repo Action on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And then please save the date for our next webinar. So it will take place on Thursday, April 27th from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll be doing Advocacy 101. And we are super pumped about it. And so with that, I'll pass it along to Pamela.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to kick it off with a question that I have for both Shannon and Oriaku. So what advice do you have for people who recognize the benefit of an exercise like what Shannon just led us through, and recognize that they need to prioritize self-love and self-care in their life, but given particularly now, but I think even before November of last year, people struggle with how to start and how to carve out a space. So I'm curious to hear from both of you, from each of you, what are some good first steps for somebody to begin this journey?
This is Shannon. That is a great question, because I feel like there are like 1,000 right answers. So like in the world of self-help or self-care or creativity, there's so many ways you can go, but only you know what feeds you. So like for myself, crazy, furious dancing in the most ridiculous fashion helps all the things. So I went to yoga teacher training and I went deep into the yoga world. It still is a balm for me, but a certain level of gaslighting needs, for me, some stomping. So when there's some stuff going on and I'm like, what is this? The more ridiculous my self-care needs to be. And not everybody has enough money for like mani-pedis every week or a nice massage, which are lovely things. But I tell you what, I can furiously dance, or I can take a beautiful walk outside and listen to the birds. That might not work for everybody. Maybe you like to color, or you need social time, or whatever it is. I just feel like there's so many options and it can be done so inexpensively that a great place to start is just ask yourself, what is it that I need right now? And then ask again, because your first self will say, nothing, I'm fine. We're trained to do that. I'm fine, everything's fine. But maybe you need to ask again and listen intently and be that lover, that support of yourself. So that's my response.
Thank you. Oriaku?
Yeah, mine is a little similar, but yeah, the idea of like whatever you do for self-care it's gonna look different. Everyone is gonna have something different that they do that really resonates with them. And I love this example. We recently had a staff retreat, and I just finished coming off of like the super like intense leadership training with Pamela. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna, start this mindfulness stuff and it's gonna be great. I'm gonna bring it back to work and, maybe we'll do a little breathing together. And so before we had this like day-long staff retreat, we took like 5 minutes and just did some breathing, just like simple 5 minutes to just be really mindful and breathe and just take really intentional deep breaths in and think, taking in all of those good things and good thoughts, that you have for yourself and for, the work that you do, and then breathe out any sort of like negativity and anxiousness that you may have. And the funny thing about it, because I really pride myself in bringing on people who definitely don't have, like, maybe not have not been in traditional movement spaces or have not been activists, the whole time they do their work. So afterwards, I was like, so how did that feel for y'all? And they're like, I mean, it was cool, I guess, to do some breathing, but they're like, but if you had asked me to go on some journey breathing and pretend I'm a tree and pretend like I'm super grounded and getting nutrients and doing all the visualization stuff, like that was not going to work. But breathing, I could do some breathing, So it's just showing that, like, maybe I thought that might have been a cool thing to bring back, and maybe it's not the best thing for everyone. So really taking that time to find out whatever method is best for you is key.
That's great advice. Thank you both for that. I'm taking furious notes because one of my key takeaways from the training that Oriaku and I were just at was that I needed to do more of that. So I'm like, let's revisit how to get started. But I definitely have found that that taking really good solid walks, a good 30-minute walk, is a great way to kind of reset and clear the mechanisms. So that's become a part of my daily routine. So Erin, it looks like we do not have questions right now. So did you have any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to Oriaku. You were talking about making time specifically for radical self-love, and it's something that I'm obsessed with, because I'm like, well, how do you do that? Just to be totally blunt. So if you could talk some more about that, I'd love to hear it. And if Shannon has any contribution on that as well, I'd be glad to hear it.
Yeah, so there are little things that I do personally, and little things that I encourage other folks to do. So recently I've been doing this thing where it's like, I'm going to leave work and I'm actually going to leave my laptop at work. And I'm going to just take my wallet and my keys, because that's honestly all I need. And that's it. And so making sure that, like, by me not having, all of everything I need to be able to be like, oh, I'm just going to be able to work from home and it's going to be magical. Like, to be able to leave that and, be like, when I'm at home, I'm at home, and I'm able to spend time with my partner and our, half an Iditarod pack of dogs. Like, that's what I mean by like taking time or making time. I can, when you're acknowledging that something might seem like it's a little triggering in a moment, or you need to take that space away, being like, okay, I'm actually going to stop. Like, let me stop and this is telling me something. Maybe it's showing that I need to show myself some love by drinking a glass of water, or show myself some love by eating a piece of fruit, because there's only so much that like Starburst can really do for the overall health of your body. So yeah, just I think it's something like that where I'm able to, I guess, be in tune with myself in that way, to be like, I'm gonna make sure to take this time, or make this time this explicitly just for taking care of yourself, and even building in those days in your calendar. Like, I've been getting pretty good at calendaring and blocking things out on my calendar, and so there'll be times where I'm like, let me just add this into my day. Like, I know it's going to be a tough week, so maybe next week I'll add some blocks to where I just like do something for me. And so that's how I'm like making time to really be intentional about taking better care of myself. Otherwise, I would just keep grinding and working without it. So yeah, I feel like doing that is just actually showing myself some of that love that I deserve,
Love it.
This
I
is
love
Shannon.
thinking about, oh, Shannon, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And as I'm a solo parent, like completely 99% solo parent of a 7-year-old. So it takes like a little brush with a kind of scary illness or something for people to realize like you are the show. It's you. And we need you to take care of you, because what you bring, no one else can bring to the table. Right. And so if you really appreciate yourself, then a part of it gets to be like a game. So sometimes I'm like, where can I sneak in something just for me today? And maybe it's like grabbing a noon yoga class, or maybe it's like, oh, I forgot, let me take a quick walk, or this food is really nourishing to me, or maybe I need a smoothie, or just to sit quietly in my car before I pick up my kid. Like, these little moments are cumulative. And so they'll build this sense of I'm important too, and you so are. So that begins a practice of where else can you show up for yourself? And that compassion will bleed into your work, and it only makes the work better. So that's all I wanted to throw in there.
Mm. Mm. That's excellent.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you to both of you on that. I mean, that's a lot of food for thought, and I'm going to be taking much of this webinar with me far beyond this evening after we close. So, and I hope that's true for some others on the line as well. This has been really profound.
Thank you. So again, we do not, so we do not have, I'm sorry, my computer just kept flashing. New computer drama. Okay, so we have a question from Paula, that I have trouble keeping up with a routine. How do you maintain your focus practicing self-love? So I absolutely share that drama. That I start off with the best intentions, and then all it takes is one hiccup in my daily routine, and then all of a sudden I'm, struggling to get back that rhythm and that pace. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. Shannon, you want to take the first stab at that?
Yeah, yes, because what I want to say is, I'm going to use moderately strong language. Screw that, because that is like punishing to feel like I have to stay in a routine. So like, I want to give you permission to do what you need to do, and to not have anything else punishing you. We got enough, man. We got enough on our plate. There's enough going on in life. I don't need like look, I bought one of these watches that tells me how far I walk. And for a while, I just had to turn it off because it would notify me like, you need to stand up. And I'm like, you need to shut up. Because I needed a minute to not have somebody else telling me what to do. So I hope that your self-care, yes, a routine can help. Maybe what you need is support. But I would check that out and be like, what if it's okay to do something different every day? What do I want to do today? What if I check in with myself and be like, you know what, today is not a gym day. Today is a go listen to the birds day outside, or today is a nap day, or a yoga by myself day, or whatever you need, and give yourself permission to be truthful about that instead of being punished by a structure that you didn't choose. So that's that's my heartfelt response.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm definitely definitely have the mindset where I'm like, I barely follow routines as is, with the exception of making sure I'm at work. So I think one of the beautiful things about the idea of like radical self-love is that you're definitely in control of like defining what that self-love looks like and what success looks like to you. So if one day success looks like getting cupcake wasted, then by all means, that's what success is, you know, in that moment. If it's like, you know what, I took a flight of stairs today, that's amazing, then go team. If it looks like, man, I showed myself some radical self-love because I let myself sleep in today, then that looks good too, you know? So I definitely feel like you're able to define what success looks like for yourself. And it changes. That's the beautiful thing. Like, it's not some static thing where there's an actual definition of what self-love looks like. You know, as you change and grow, and as the days change and grow, then that's why it's so beautiful that it changes and grows with you, you know? And so part of that idea of like showing compassion to others is like, should be compassionate to yourself. It's okay, you know? It's okay if you don't have a routine, but even if it's something, you know, something little that, or maybe little to me might be big to you, you know? But whatever it is for yourself, I think that's what's key.
You know,
Thank you.
it could also be a sign of not it not being a great fit for self-care, whatever that thing is that's not getting done. Because sometimes that's the answer. It's like the thing I'm avoiding may not be the best fit for me. So in the self-care realm, you might want to try something else that you would enjoy doing. That's just a thought. Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. So that is incredibly helpful, because I really like what you both had to say about the idea of defining success yourself, and not necessarily, I tend to be a very rigid person. So I, you know, when it comes to, you know, what I'm supposed to do every day, I'm very scheduled out. So, so yeah, like I think that's a radical notion that, you know, we get to say whether that schedule needs to be adjusted, and kind of giving yourself permission for that. I'm having a serious aha moment right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like it's going to make you free range and, you know, decide to live in a yurt. Like, your self-care is for you. And so whatever that looks like should be decided by you.
Good point. Amen. Exactly. And it's just so sad that that's such a radical thing, but you're so right. Even though, you know, a yurt sounds really good right now.
It does.
That's so wonderful. So thank you so much for that. I did have a follow-up question for Shannon about the whole app thing. So we are so tech driven, and I was looking at like apps to kind of do daily reminders, and I kind of felt what you were saying. It's like this pressure of, no, wait a minute, you're becoming something that I feel beholden to. So, you know, what are your thoughts, just a little bit more on, I think this falls in line with what you were saying about scheduling and giving yourself permission to define success, but just, you know, not being so rigid about even the self-care that it then becomes an obligation.
Yeah, so like I was reading a mindfulness and leadership article earlier this afternoon, and one of the things it reminded me to do was to turn off the notifications, which I think we've mentioned already, on our phone, right? So it's like, what can I do to not be distracted in the middle of something? Like sometimes I need to be distracted in case there's a child emergency or work is calling, but sometimes I can turn it all the way off. And I do that with my Fitbit app. Some days I'm an A student, firstborn, you know, I am success driven. Some days I need that accountability. So like today I was like, look at how many steps I did. Good job, Shannon. But I also reminded, like, if it bothers me, turn it off. Today is not the day to count steps. Today's a day to do yin yoga, you know, or today's a day to sleep in or wear my yoga pants all day. Do you know, it's like allowing myself to tell the truth about what I need, even if it is the gold stars from the Fitbit, you know? So I also have an app, a mindfulness app for guided meditation. So there are apps that you can get if you need help being led through something like a meditation or guided breathing. So there are apps you can find for free if that's of interest. Yeah, lots of them.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I think I'm going to look into the guided meditation ones. Oriaku, did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, all I could think of was how I don't even know what the app is called. I think it was like Plant Daddy or Plant Baby or something. Either way, I don't have the app anymore because I killed so many plants. It was supposed to remind me to drink water, and I was like, oh yeah, I should drink water. And I would go back on the app, and it would be like, hey girl, are you still alive? Because you haven't acknowledged the fact that you drank water. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so intense. But if, you know, the whole app thing doesn't work for you, like I have some accountability buddies. That's what I've been calling them. And so it's like actually having people who can do that work. There's just something really amazing and beautiful about being able to have a squad of people who support you that's like all over the United States, you know? Or it could be in your immediate vicinity who are your accountability buddies to make sure you're like, how are you? You know, are you doing okay? Are you making sure that you're breathing and making sure that you're taking that time for yourself? So if apps don't work, like, let's not forget we've got folks, you know, and people and community who can definitely chip in and take care of you, you know? So or help you support you. Yeah.
Yeah, that is fantastic. So I just have to, so it's accountability buddies?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
So that is excellent. Yeah. I am so going to borrow that.
Yes, yes. I got it from, it was like at an NAF training that we went to, and I believe it was like Monica Dennis and Rachel Ibrahim, and they mentioned accountability buddies, and I'm like, perfect, that's what it's being called going forward. But it's just, you've got your people, so yeah.
That's wonderful advice, thank you. So Erin, unless you had any additional questions, I think we can wrap up.
You know, Pamela, I do, but I'm tempted to just not, so that, you know, we've got a spare spot of time. I think it's a self-care moment for everyone, and I'd like to encourage folks to take this extra time to do something for themselves.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. So I want to say thank you to Shannon and to Oriaku. It is always a pleasure. And I've taken off so many notes tonight, and I really appreciate your advice, Shannon, your exercise, and just, you know, the sound, real world advice on how we can, you know, be radical in our self-love and practice self-care. So thank you both so much.
Thank you. This was fun. Now I'm going to go practice some radical self-love with myself.
Get after it. Thank you. And thank you to all of our attendees. And with that, I think we're done. Take care.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.